Hello, one and all, and welcome back to another episode review for Kamen Rider Saber. This time we are on episode 35, or chapter 35, and I will become a god. This is basically the culmination of the storyline up until now about, gathering all the swords and books and, the book of, basically getting the Book of Destiny. This is the culmination of that storyline, and, well, it's a mixed bag, in all honesty. So, let's talk about the episode. So, our episode actually starts off where the previous one ended, with Luna making her return to everyone. And almost immediately, she is kidnapped by Rika. And it's like, damn, that was like, 5 seconds? So basically with Luna back and with almost all the swords gathered, Master decides to enact his plan and, gather all the swords and swordsmen and books into one spot to summon the Book of Destiny. Obviously, because, everyone else will try to stop him, this also works as gathering everyone he doesn't have, as they'll show up to the spot to try to stop him. And right now he's only missing Kento, Rentaro, and Toma's swords and books, respectively. And, well, they obviously have to show up to stop him, so they're going to show up to try to stop him. So, double-edged sword with that plan there, at least in their case. And Toma is either knocked out or just extremely tired from losing Luna, and, wakes up in the middle of it learning that Rentaro has gone off ahead in order to try to, stop Mesh Logos. And that plan doesn't work because, he fights against Durandal again and does a pretty good job of it, but still loses and Rentaro gets his sword taken. Ren also shows up, fights Caliber because he has anger issues against Kento right now, and then they both take each other out. And then finally, Toma shows up. Well, Bacht Bacht actually is the one that takes out Ren, because, he's there too. And then finally, Toma joins the fray and has to fight against Bacht. Now, after this point, Luna finally wakes up because she's been unconscious this whole time for some reason. And it's kind of funny because he just sees Luna wakes up and says, "Oh, let's get to the end of this already." And he opens, I guess, the Book of Ruin and summons Emotional Dragon out of it. And I question so many things. Like, it does work to his ultimate goal in the end anyway. But it still feels weird for him to just give Toma back a power-up when he really didn't need to do that. But I guess it doesn't matter. Because, Toma uses Emotional Dragon. It's again good to see a form that has a proper shield in this series about sword fighting. And, Toma has Emotional Dragon, fights against Bacht, beats Bacht, but, he does his whole I'm Immortal thing. But Master Logos, I guess, seals him away again. He has Eternal Phoenix, and that somehow gets Bacht out of the way because it says it's time to move on. So, Bacht is taken out, which I feel is lackluster, considering he had like 2 episodes of build-up. And, and a movie, but, he's gone now. I guess Toei couldn't afford his salary anymore. And then the Book of Destiny is summoned. But here's the thing. The future Kento saw where, Sophia took Luna's place, it didn't turn out, because Sophia tried to take Luna's place, because, apparently it was her purpose to replace Luna as a sacrifice. But Master Logo says, "No, you failure, go the fuck back." And so it doesn't happen. And somehow Luna is able to summon, or Toma is able to summon this kind of stairway to Luna to, get to her, to save her. And I'll admit, the effect they use is kind of funny. Like, people have been memeing it for a minute because it's a really, really funny looking effect. But, it just feels weird, and then Toma screaming his ass off about Luna again. But he does manage to save her, and this stops the Book of Destiny from being all the way completed. But it still summons a new Rumble Ride book and a sword. So, Max Logos will be becoming a writer, or someone will be becoming a writer in next week's episode, because we do have a writer that was revealed in the scans, and now the sword and book are here. But the sword is a recolor of the King of Arthur sword, and again, I still feel that King of Arthur, for all the hype it had, was very, very underutilized in this series for all the hype it did have and all the effort they went to get it. Like, I knew it was gonna get phased out of the series over time, but still, man, that was just it. Anyway, after the ceremony's done, the statue thing breaks up and everyone gets their swords back. And the swords that were sealed away are now magically not sealed away, because Daishinji says he can hear his sword's voice again. If you remember, when it was sealed away, he couldn't hear it. So that's a good. And there's a kind of funny moment with Kento, because he's both Ikazuchi and the Sword of Darkness get in front of him, and it's like he pauses for a moment to choose the sword, and he picks Darkness. I'm just like, Master Xehanort will be proud of you. And then Luna fades away. Apparently she was out of energy and goes back to wherever she was sealed away. So that kind of ends whatever was going on with that. So yeah, overall, the episode is fine. There's not really a lot to it. It's mostly just one fight scene and the culmination of the plot up till now. But honestly, especially considering next week's episode, this feels like another victim of the whole two-episode structure plot. Like, I feel that this is going to be continuing into next week's episode, which obviously it will be. And, well, it might have a better payoff in that episode than in this episode. Overall, it's fine, especially if you're just here for fights, because the fights are pretty good. It's good to see Ren, or finally, just get over the Kento thing, even if we still don't have an explanation about that. Like, they just kind of leave that hanging as a lampshade about why he idolizes Kento so much. And it's fine that it's good to have everyone have their swords and their books and their ability to fight back, even though I feel it's going to be superfluous considering we're in the endgame of the series. And typically by endgame, most of the superfluous fighters only exist to be jobbed out. And I have a feeling it's going to happen a lot now. It was happening a lot, especially during Sabala's introduction, or when she was first able to henshin. They're basically fucking Slash and Buster just kept getting jobbed out, and I feel it's going to keep happening, especially with them right now. Do I like it? Not really. I'd rather they didn't end up just being jobbers who exist just to show how really cool the new threat of the week is, or threat for that part of the story is. But I feel they're just going to end up being jobbed throughout the rest of this series, and that just kind of makes me sad. I do honestly, I kind of like the Ren and Disaster, because it feels like a rather interesting pairing. Like, it feels like a really cool yet understated pairing, and I kind of like that. I do like their little scenes here. Is that like Ren doesn't even know what's going on? Disaster just gets up like, "Ooh, I smell something interesting going on." And they just head out to that, and that's what gets Ren involved in the plot. So that's interesting. I'm also wondering where Kento's going to go from here, because that pause before he picked up the Sword of Darkness, that was interesting, because he was considering going back to just being just using Ikazuchi again and being Espada again, but he chose the Darkness. So I'm wondering if this is a potential future he just didn't see, and if that'll influence him going forward, because eventually he's gonna join up with the good guys again, unless he just becomes like the bad guy for the season, which I doubt. But it would be interesting to see what that decision means. Also, I wonder if anyone's ever going to pick up Ikazuchi again, or try to use Ikazuchi in any way, or if Toma's going to dual wield it with Ikazuchi again, because that was honestly a pretty interesting twist, or at least that was an interesting way to utilize that sword when it happened. But overall, this episode is very much a lead-in episode. I honestly feel honestly feel like it'll be better on the rewatch when we have the whole 2 episodes out, rather than just the episode by itself. Mass Logos continues to be kind of an enigma. He really gives off kind of creeper uncle vibes in this episode because he's just kind of holding Luna in his lap throughout most of the episode until it's time for the ceremony to take place. Well, speaking of Luna, the fact that she just disappears at the end really just shows she was just back for the sake of facilitating the plot. And I just feel like, man, that felt cold. Like Toma just gets her back, and she's like, "Well, I'm off to go back to wherever the fuck I came out of again." And it's like, damn, you don't get to have a happy ending. But, like, poor Luna. That's all I gotta say on that front. Like, she's just back for 5 minutes, and then back to the void she goes. The unending, unaging void, apparently. So, yeah. Pretty short one, considering the fact this episode really doesn't have a lot of substance to it. It's mostly just fat. So, yeah. See you all next week with episode 36.